North Carolina legislators are learning a bit more this spring about what's called the grid. That's the network of wires and connections that provide all of us with electricity.
The grid is actually operated as four independent grids in North America.
The grid size theoretically makes it a possible target of terrorist and criminal activities, not to mention those passing hurricanes, tornadoes, sometimes ice storms, and solar events that can make whole regions go dark until repairs are made. Lawmakers are asking power companies how the grid can be hardened and made more resilient against both Mother Nature and rogue individuals wishing to do us harm.
We can't prevent them, okay? So there's no way to prevent these types of events. So what we need to be able to do is the appropriate amount of detection or projection of these events. So if you detection, think of, we should be monitoring to make sure from a physical security perspective that someone's, we're paying attention to our critical things. From a projection, we have a lot of sophisticated weather forecasting.
Why do you keep having hearings about something that hasn't ever happened, and we hope it never happens?
Well, it's not a problem, and it won't be a problem if we continue to plan. We look at new technologies all the time. We look at new instances where there's folks trying to penetrate the grid, trying to find out what our weaknesses are. So as we see those happen, and not necessarily here in North Carolina, but across the globe, actually. So as we look at those and prepare and plan, and of course weather events and other things that we can't control, but we can at least control how we react to them. So it's as far as emergency response, we're always trying to see what's going to be best practice and what's entering new into that conversation.
Okay, when you talk about infiltrating the grid, things happening to the grid, you're talking power lines, etc. What's the biggest problem now? It used to be hurricanes and tornadoes would just destroy a grid. Is there anything more beyond that that is more dangerous, more scary?
Well, there's certainly more scary. I mean, our biggest threat always is going to be weather. But as you look at the future and today too, as we look at potential terrorist attacks, bringing down our grid is essentially the same or more or worse than bringing down our financial industry. Because you'll disallow communications because we have to have power to run the internet, run our computers and everything else. And even when we've kind of disbanded into central locations where we've got multiple backups across the nation, across the state, across the nation, you're still going to have that power. So we were looking at redundancy. What if we had a perfect storm where there's some type of weather event and a terrorist attack? What would happen there? How do we prevent loss of power, loss of time, loss of communications? Because that would be essential. We're doing a lot of things too with FirstNet as we look at emergency responders. We've got radio networks. We also have internet networks as we communicate. So we've got to be very cognizant of what could be the future attack.
So as a legislator, are you worried about the ordinary folks' access to electricity or internet, or are you worried about government's ability to communicate and have power in case something really bad happens?
Well, yes and yes. I mean, our primary concern is making sure that folks just have a normal day. You come home, flip the switch, power comes, light comes on. So that's a concern. Anytime there's any outage, whether it's a car wreck that knocks out a pole and now you're sitting at home for 2 hours or 3 hours while that's repaired. That's always a concern. But then the bigger concern, of course, is how would we communicate? How would we respond to an emergency by coordinating with our emergency management division, with the utilities, with fire, rescue, National Guard, whoever's involved in that situation. We've got to be able to communicate. And if we have loss of power, loss of internet, it makes it very difficult to do so.
Well, how do you interact with the power companies out there, because they're here in a public hearing discussing vulnerabilities of the electrical grid? So if I'm a bad guy, I want to hear what's going to go on in your committee hearing. So are you in the dark, or do legislators get this inside skinny on what needs to be done so you can do it? How does it work?
Yeah, that's the caveat. We have a public meeting to talk in generalities about security and what we're doing. Honestly, though, we can't discuss and shouldn't discuss, and that's something that we have to have the discussions, one-on-one in a closer environment, so that we're not allowing our weaknesses to be broadcast. So where we're improving, where we know that we've got areas to improve upon, those are the conversations you save for the one-on-one conversations that we can have, and not violate any public trust, but at the same time, we don't want to announce what might potentially be a problem.
So right now, as you look at the broad picture, are there concerns with the electrical grid and with the internet infrastructure in this state? What are they, and what do we need to work on?
Yeah, well, yes, there's always going to be concerns, even when we have it perfect. Here's the thing: as technologies advance for us, they're also advancing for the bad guys. So we've always got to try to be one step ahead of them. So as we harden the grid, and when we say harden the grid, that means making sure there are redundancies, so that if one section goes down, we can ramp up the other section and make sure that everything stays connected. We've got a lot of data centers in North Carolina, whether it be Facebook, Apple, or whoever. Loss of power could be a concern. So we've got a lot of redundancies on site, but also within the network itself. So as we look at the new technologies, it's very exciting, because what it also means for the consumer, for the average citizen, outside of these horrific type future events, if they hopefully never happen, but more to that point, if we have a weather event, something like that, where the power stays on more times than not. So we've gone through a pretty hard winter.
Do we need any new state laws, in your opinion, or regulations regarding making the electrical grid more stable and making the internet grid more stable?
I think this is where private enterprise and the public utilities are doing a great job at advancing. They have a vested interest in making sure this happens. I'm not sure that needs to be directed by legislation, except that we allow them to operate. And so, that's where the communication between the two are very, very helpful to us.
So you want to know what these companies are doing. You don't necessarily want to meddle.
Correct. Yeah, we don't want to get in their way. I mean, this is a great instance where government could get in the way. If we don't, they have a better interest than anybody in making sure they stay on, that their customers are being served, and their larger customers, whether it be data centers, financial institutions, or whatever, are up and running. They have that's their biggest customers. That's where they bring their revenue in. So they've got a great motivator there. They want to stay up.
Representative Jason Saine, Lincoln County Republican here, and very proud of himself. 31st most effective legislator in North Carolina after one term in office. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I announced this week and was surprised, but pleasantly surprised. A friend walked into my office and told me about it. Very happy that.
Hey, they love you until they don't.
That's right.
See you, Representative. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.